Had I known what was waiting for me in Mercy, Ohio, I might not have been so eager to leave Minnesota. But of course, I could never have imagined what lay ahead, so for weeks I happily anticipated the sight of St. Paul in the rearview mirror of Daddy's 1929 Ford sedan. It was May 30th, 1931, when we finally packed up the car and made our great escape from the saintly city, refuge of fugitives and gangsters. Something else I didn't know then was that the furnished apartment we'd just vacated, number 205 at the Edgecombe Court, would in 2 days' time be rented out to bank robber Frank Jelly Nash, lately of Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary. He'd managed to escape the year before and had taken a circuitous route to Minnesota's notorious Haven. Like most criminals, he knew that once he reached the state capital, it was ollie ollie oxen free. That's just the kind of town St. Paul was in those days. The sun was starting its ascent over the eastern edge of the city as Daddy started the car and pulled away from the curb. The morning offered enough light to showcase the wondrous array of spring blossoms that had unfolded like a miracle after another harsh winter. In the passenger seat in front of me, Mother sighed. "We're leaving at the very best time of the year," she said. "It can't be helped," Daddy replied. "At any rate," he added, "there's spring in Ohio, too." "Do you suppose they'll have lilacs there the way we do here?" "Probably. If not, we'll have some imported." Mother laughed lightly at that before sighing again. Truth be told, Mother and Daddy weren't happy about leaving St. Paul. I was the only one among us who wanted to go. I felt a quiet satisfaction as we drove down Lexington Avenue for the last time, winding our way through the otherwise fashionable streets of the city, filled with stately Victorian houses and luxury hotels. Among them the Commodore, where rich and famous luminaries like F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald had partied away much of the roaring 20s. It might have been a nice town, this Midwestern metropolis nestled along the banks of the Mississippi River, had its wheels not been oiled by corruption. We'd lived there 7 years, having arrived in 1924 when Daddy got a job as a spot welder at the Ford assembly plant. Before that, we'd been living in Detroit, where I was born, and where Daddy also worked for Ford. But Mother and Daddy didn't like Detroit, and eventually Daddy applied for a transfer to Minnesota. When we arrived in St. Paul, the city was already rife with criminals, and yet it was a surprisingly safe place to live. This was the result of the layover agreement established by former police chief John O'Connor. Gangsters, bootleggers, bank robbers, money launderers, fugitives, all were welcome as long as they followed the agreement's 3 simple rules. First, upon arrival in St. Paul, they had to check in with Dapper Dan Hogan, owner of the Green Lantern Speakeasy and supervisor of the O'Connor's system. He was himself a hoodlum, a money launderer, and an expert organizer of crime who was known as the Irish Godfather. Second, all incoming criminals were to make a donation to Dapper Dan, who distributed it among the lawmen with pockets open to payoffs: police detectives, aldermen, grand jury members, prosecutors, and judges. Third, once settled in the life of St. Paul, these active felons had to swear never to commit a crime within the city limits. Bank robbers could rob banks, murderers could kill, and gangsters could blow each other to kingdom come without interference from the law, so long as they conducted their business elsewhere. John O'Connor died the year we moved to Minnesota, but Hogan went on instituting the agreement until he himself was hurled into the hereafter by a car bomb in 1928. After that, without Hogan around to keep the peace, things started going downhill. Harry Sawyer, Dan Hogan's assistant as well as his probable assassin, took over both the Green Lantern and control of the O'Connor system. Sawyer wasn't nearly as interested in keeping the peace as he was in making money, and right after Hogan's death, crime spiked and crested in a 5-year wave. Sawyer's friends from all over the country started rolling in, public enemies like John Dillinger, Alvin Karpus, and Fred and Doc Barker.